Network. This is the noon news from Montana's news leader.
Good afternoon. We're so glad you could join us today. I'm Aja Goare. Our top story today, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is facing tough questions today before the House Judiciary Committee about his previous testimony on Russian interference in the presidential elections. Jeff Sessions claimed earlier he wasn't aware of any Trump campaign meetings with Russians. CBS's Mola Langi has the story.
Please raise your right hand.
Jeff Sessions swore to tell the truth before the House Judiciary Committee this morning.
But the truth, so help you God.
But Democrats want to know if he told the truth during his confirmation hearings when he testified he had no knowledge of any contacts between the Trump campaign and Russia.
I will not accept and reject accusations that I have ever lied. That is a lie.
Former Trump campaign aide George Papadopoulos told the FBI that during the campaign, he suggested a meeting between then-candidate Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in front of both Trump and Sessions.
I do now recall that the March 2016 meeting at the Trump Hotel that Mr. Papadopoulos attended, but I have no clear recollection of the details of what he said at that meeting.
Sessions had to recuse himself from the Russia investigation because of his own meetings with Russia's ambassador to the U.S. That led to the appointment of special counsel Robert Mueller to investigate if there was any Russian collusion during the 2016 election. Now the Attorney General is looking into whether another special prosecutor is needed for a different Russia probe. Department of Justice prosecutors will look into whether an investigation is needed to see if Clinton Foundation donations were tied to an Obama administration approval of a deal allowing a Russian company to purchase a mining company with uranium operations in America. The president said he was disappointed in the DOJ's lack of action as he left for his trip to Asia. Mola Langi, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump Jr. confirms he had direct communication with WikiLeaks during and after the last presidential campaign. The organization apparently contacted him first. Last night, the president's oldest son released pages of private messages from September and October 2016. That's when WikiLeaks published emails and documents stolen from Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman. U.S. intelligence officials have determined WikiLeaks was being used by the Russians to disseminate material stolen from Democrats. And President Trump has wrapped up his 12-day trip to Asia. He's heading home and head first into the congressional debate over tax reform. His primary goals abroad were to secure better U.S. trade deals and build support to rein in North Korea's nuclear ambitions. President Trump also expressed interest in reaching a deal with North Korea, though he did engage in yet another war of words with leader Kim Jong-un on Twitter. Today marks the start of Montana's special legislative session. Lawmakers are gathering in Helena to work on how to solve the state's $227 million budget crisis. MTN's chief political reporter Mike Dennison is at the Capitol. Mike, what should we expect today?
Thank you, Aja. The House just convened a few minutes ago to start off the special session on filling the $227 million budget hole that the state faces. The Senate convened about an hour ago. Tops in the agenda today here at the Capitol is actually expanding the agenda of the special session. Republicans are going to use their majority muscle to add some things to the governor's call of the session as they work out the deals. Once they do that, they can start introducing those bills, and they'll have hearings on those bills this afternoon and probably start voting on those bills. It's going to be a long day here at the Capitol. There are going to be hearings into the afternoon, into the evening, votes on the floor to try to move things forward and get as far as they can so they can get out of here in a day or two. And one of the things in there, of course, is the $30 million from the private prison that they're going to be considering that Republicans want to take a look at, and also an additional premium tax on some small nonprofit insurers. That's what we'll see today.
Thank you so much, Mike. Mike live at the Capitol today for the special legislative session. And one of the things that will be discussed today, Governor Steve Bullock wants to use $30 million from a state workers' compensation fund as part of his plan to balance the state budget. But that proposal faced opposition Monday at its first hearing. In a presentation to House and Senate business committees, Republican Senator Ed Buttrey said the state's work comp fund contains up to $1.6 billion in reserves and equity. Buttrey said his proposal would only use a small portion of investment earnings from that fund and said work comp insurance rates for businesses would not be affected. But business groups turned out to oppose the fund transfer. They call it a tax and argued that money should stay in the work comp fund to benefit the businesses that paid in. The first committee vote on the work comp bill is expected to take place today. Trial has resumed in Great Falls for the man accused of bear hugging his wife to death last year. Roy Edward Scott is accused in the murder of Stephanie Wells, who died from blunt force trauma and strangulation. Scott claims he restrained his wife when she became violent after a night out drinking together. The jury was selected Monday and opening arguments began this morning. If Scott is found responsible for his wife's death, he could be convicted of deliberate or negligent homicide. The former Florence doctor accused of overprescribing medications to patients leading to 2 fatal overdoses claims he acted compassionately. Dr. Chris Christensen took the stand at his trial in Ravalli County District Court Monday, where he's charged with 22 felonies. Christensen testified about his lengthy medical experience, and he says he has a particular compassion for patients with pain because his father is a World War II veteran. Prosecutors argue Christensen kept poor records and prescribed too much medication to patients. A male and female patient ultimately died while under Christensen's care. Trial is expected to wrap up this week. Less than 3 weeks after the Mineral County Jail closed its doors, the local sheriff says he's out. A Mineral County commissioner confirms Sheriff Tom Bauer's resignation came 4 hours before an important meeting about reopening the jail. The jail closed last month after safety concerns over the diminishing number of detention officers. The recommendations for reopening the facility were to hire a jail administrator who could train jailers and balance its budget. The administrator would be in place of filling an empty deputy position. The undersheriff may take over in the interim. Plans to develop a new $80 million hotel and conference center in Missoula get the green light from the city council. That vote allows Hotel Fox partners to work on final designs and plans for the project at the Riverfront Triangle property. The Missoula Redevelopment Agency has been working on this project, which includes condos, hotel rooms, and restaurants, for the past 6 years. Final designs are not expected for 18 months. Still to come on the noon news, the earthquake in the Middle East, more devastating than initially thought. We'll take you there for more on the impact next. But first, Ed has our weather forecast. Stay with us.
You're watching